their downfall is what gave me an edge in life. And ultimately, I've learned to sell your product, whatever it may be. You need to be in front of your audience constantly, not only selling, but learning, collaborating, building a culture with them. And I'd like to say the success of John Gallucci and the success of JAG Physical Therapy is we are ingrained in the communities that we service. And all of my clinical directors are ingrained in the catchment areas that we're in. We're 155 individual community-based clinics that are engaged with the community each and every day, because that's what built the first clinic. So, and that's sort of how we've been able to succeed and have good longevity and sustainability.
John, welcome to the podcast. I have to say, you have the best looking chair out of anybody I think I've interviewed in a long, long time. It looks very serious, professional, authoritative, I think the chair looks.
Well, thank you. Well, thank my wife for that one, because we have moved into a new home about a year ago, and I had this great old chair that I just would not part with. And she said, you need something nicer. And I'm like, I really like my chair. And literally one day I came in from a trip and I had a new chair, and this is it. So I had nothing to do with the chair. So thank God my wife has good taste.
Decision was made for you. I like that.
I do get compliments on the chair. I never get compliments on my face. Mom always said I had a face for radio. So I never get compliments on my face. But, I'm glad the chair got some props today coming out of the gate.
Well, what's funny is I mentioned a few people that I was talking with you. And almost everybody, and these are people from different parts of the profession, almost everybody in unison was like, well, you've read his book, right? And I was like, I felt like almost on my heels. I was like, oh my God, I'm talking to him tomorrow. What am I supposed to do?
You should have said which book. That's what you should have said.
Is it more than one? Because I found the one book they were talking about. All right, so let's go backwards. I'm usually pretty proud when I read a book. Never mind actually put down pen and paper and thought and time and write a book. So why, what's someone walking away with from your books?
So the first two books were prevention of injury in different sports. One was soccer injury prevention and treatment. The other one is baseball injury prevention and treatment that I did with Dr. Christopher Ahmad of the New York Yankees. So Doc Ahmad and I collaborated on that one, and it really took off well. And the soccer book was really a book that when we were going to publishers with a parents book that I wrote and still haven't published, all the publishers kept saying, you work in Major League Soccer, you need to do a soccer book before you do anything. Otherwise, we're not going to publish you. And after about 14, 15 publishers told us the same thing, I'm like, all right, I'll write a soccer book. And we wrote a soccer book. And the interesting thing is it's in multiple languages in multiple countries. It's in Chinese, it's in Spanish, and it's in English, and you can get it in multiple countries. So we're very proud of that. And then the baseball book was because Dr. Ahmad broke my chops that he was a soccer fan and I didn't collaborate with anybody. So he says, you're going to write a baseball book with me. And we wrote a baseball injury prevention and treatment book. And then one day I was being interviewed. You're probably talking about the JAG Method book.
That was it.
I was being interviewed by a reporter, and I was coming off of the dais of a stage. And as you could tell, I'm an Italian kid from the Northeast, so I speak with my hands. But anyway, I was being interviewed, and the guy kind of stumped me because he said, if you had to give me one thing in life that changed your life, what would it be? Like, what would be that thing in your career or that thing, that moment? And I was like, oh my God, I've got like 30 of them. So I was like, hey, can I think about that overnight and shoot you a quick sentence or two? And he was like, yeah, that's great. So I went to the airport, and of course, normal United, I got canceled and had to wait. And I was in the airport for about 5 hours and just started writing down some notes. And I ended up writing about 15 really important things that I felt kind of gave me inspiration or changed my direction or gave me motivation. And when I called up our chief marketing officer, Kayla George, I said, hey, I'm sending this to the reporter. What do you think? And she goes, I think you've got a great idea for us to write another book.
Yeah.
And we came together, and she helped me write a book, and it came out to be about 160 pages. And I'm like, this is boring as heck. Nobody's going to read this. I want to kick people in the butt. I want to motivate people. Let's make something that's 25 minutes, the same content, but let's take the 160 pages and shrink it down to 30 pages. So it's like a kick in the butt, 18 years old to 35-year-old. Hey, what inspires you? What motivates you? What pearl can I give you to give you that edge in life that may get you up and
Yeah.
going? And literally, that's how the JAG method was born. And I'm sure you figured out JAG by now, John Anthony Gallucci. So I keep it simple as you can.
Yeah. I wish you had a little more energy though, John. I wish you were a little
Yeah,
more,
I'm
more.
very introverted. I'm very shy. I'm actually the shy one in the family. So
All right. So growing up in Brooklyn, you mentioned from the Northeast, and you're working in your family's surgical supply business. How'd those two experiences, you talked about maybe sitting there in the airport, sort of jotting down how moments, failures, successes, triumphs, friction really help shape our lives. That's what we measure it by. How did those two experiences help shape your interest in this profession that we're both in terms of physical therapy?
yeah, I think that's an awesome question. So my mom and dad owned a surgical supply business in Brooklyn. They were raising us in Staten Island. So I was in the heart of Brooklyn during the day, and at home in Staten Island at night. And ultimately, my father had a durable medical equipment business for the community, and he did hospital relationships and home care relationships. And similar to what we've seen in the last 10 years in our industry, there was a consolidation going on in the mid 80s. And he thought he was going to be able to navigate, because he had a history of 30 to 32 years in the business, that he felt, oh, we've seen ups and downs. I'm going to be able to navigate it. Well, unfortunately, the healthcare systems or the hospitals around him decided to build their own, and one by one took away his contracts and took a small mom and pop business and put it out of business. And dad thought he was smarter than the curve, which was one of the lessons I've learned. You're never smarter than the curve. Understand it, try to adapt to it. And mom and dad unfortunately ended up losing a business, losing the home that I was raised in, ended up going into a one-bedroom apartment. I was 19 at the time. My brother was in law school at the time. And my dad basically told you, I made you men, go figure it out. And I'm like, well, I'll come home. And he goes, you're not getting this. You need to go figure it out on your own. And I was very fortunate that I had family, friends, colleagues that at the time that I was going to school with, or I wrestled with, or I was on a team with. And at 13, I knew I wanted to be a physical therapist, because I was delivering to physical therapy centers. So I haven't left the clinic since I'm 13. So a lot of people like to say, hey, how long have you been in physical therapy? And I always say, well, 44 years. And people are like, what? How is that possible? And I'm like, well, I'm 57. I've been in it since I'm 13. And I love it. I love being in the clinic. I love dealing with people. I love being engaged with people to help them get better in any way, shape, or form. I love motivating my staff and making them better, and motivating the community and helping people. After I get off this podcast, I'm running right to be a keynote speaker at the university I graduated for their winter sports tip-off dinner. So I believe that, one kind brings two back. And my mom and dad taught me that, although they had troubles in business and financially, their downfall is what gave me an edge in life.
Yeah.
Gave me an edge in business.
So you've said that, right? So never, I mean, I feel like making sure that you understand that you're not smarter than the curve is another way of saying something, be humble, right? Humility first. Is there something that you do on a regular basis, or a practice that you put in your life to make sure that you're continually doing that? Not that you know that or feel that, but that you're doing that in all the aspects of your professional, personal life.
So my wife would call it that I'm really, really nice and always willing to give a hand up. Sometimes she calls it stupid nice, because I spend a lot of time in helping and motivating people, and she feels I need to take some time for John. But to me, that's my passion. Anything I could help
Yeah.
someone become better, anytime I can help educate someone from my experiences or my education or my so-called path, why shouldn't you? I mean, just before we got on this podcast, I had a gentleman that I know that just built this concussion software. He knows I'm involved in pro sports, and he wanted to know what I thought about this technology. And I said, your technology is great, but you have no idea how to market it. And you need to be able to put it in front of the community that you're trying to get access. You could sell it to a healthcare professional, but that's not what it's for. It's for kids in sports. You need to get this in front of parents, and you need to get it in front of coaches. And his marketing plan was none of that. And ultimately, I've learned to sell your product, whatever it may be. You need to be in front of your audience constantly, not only selling, but learning, collaborating, building a culture with them. And I'd like to say the success of John Gallucci and the success of JAG Physical Therapy is we are ingrained in the communities that we service. And all of my clinical directors are ingrained in the catchment areas that we're in. People like to say, oh, John, you've got 155 clinics. You're a large company. No, we're 155 individual community-based clinics that are engaged with the community each and every day, because that's what built the first clinic. So, and that's sort of how we've been able to succeed and have good longevity and sustainability.
Physical therapists, if you're not up on blood flow restriction training, you're missing out. BFR, it's the future of rehab. Owens Recovery Science has the certification for learning BFR from the ground up. You'll get hands-on with the best tech, expert insights, and tools to deliver real results for your patients. Stop waiting. Check out owensrecoveryscience.com. That is owensrecoveryscience.com, and get certified in BFR today. Physical therapists, if you're ready to stop playing small and actually master your specialty, Brooks Institute of Higher Learning is where it's at. Imagine one-on-one mentoring, hands-on labs, top-tier facility, all while earning a full salary and benefits at Brooks Rehabilitation. We're talking 8 cutting-edge residencies, specialized fellowships, and a 93% board pass rate for graduates. Get trained by the best with the best. Check out brooksihl.org. That's brooksihl.org, and start leveling up your career today. I want to ask you, I'm always interested about these two moments, because I think they're like they're bigger moments, right? Number one is opening your first clinic, because going from 0 to 1 is huge, right? It's 1,000, it's 100%. And then going from 1 to 2, right? So what made you say, not only do I want to be in the profession, but I want to be sort of the master of my own destiny and open a clinic? And then was it an easy decision or a difficult one, again, at growing by 100%, going from 1 to 2?
That's an awesome question. And the best way to answer it is, again, I've been in numerous clinics, numerous companies from the time I was 13 years old. I've learned from some of the best mentors in the physical therapy profession. Marilyn Moffitt. We all know Marilyn, APTA legend, NYU legend. Art Nelson, another NYU APTA. Rich Giordano, an unbelievable hands-on skilled physical therapist. Catherine McWilliams led Lenox Hill Hospital for years, went out, individually opened up her practice. So learning from them on how they operated their practices and how they built the practice around a philosophy of their individuality. So Catherine was an unbelievable hands-on therapist. Rich was an unbelievable biomechanist. Art was an unbelievable researcher. I wanted to be able to offer something special. And when it came time for me to say, hey, it's time for me to have my own identity and my own individuality, is how we came about to open up the first clinic. And it was funny because I came out of professional sports. I'm very fortunate that I've worked in professional sports. I had a friend that was with one of the sports marketing companies, and he was like, I'm going to give you your name of your company for free as a gift from me to you, and I'm going to teach you how to brand the name. And he gave me 35 different names, and I love them to death, but they were horrible.
Really?
I mean, they were everything we've seen today, and I won't name a few because there's a couple of those names out there, but it was everything we've seen before around movement, around success. Right. And my wife one day, she was doing our legal papers, and she said, you know, what's the deal, bud? You got to name the company. You can't open a door without a
Right.
name. And on top of the paper, she had John Anthony Gallucci. And I'm like, well, what about JAG Physical Therapy? And she goes, your initials? And I said, listen, I love Gene Simmons. I'm a Kiss fan. Keep it simple, silly. So let's keep it simple. And she goes, okay, doing business as JAG Physical Therapy. And we go back to my marketing buddy, and he was like, oh, you mean like Jaguar? And I'm like, no, I mean like Jag, like me. And he goes, well, what do you mean? John Anthony Gallucci, it's me. And he goes, I don't know if that's going to sell. And, you know, lo and behold, it sold. And here we are almost 21 years later, and we're doing okay.
What about the jump from 1 to 2? Was that as scarier from 0 to 1?
What drove me 1 to 2 is, I hate to say this, pride and selfishness.
Okay.
I had a young physical therapist that came and joined me right out of school. I spent 2 years molding him in the type of care and outcomes we wanted, the VIP type service we wanted, the patient first experience, you know, treat people the way you want to be treated. And he came to me and told me, you know, I've got another offer to go somewhere else. And I was like, whoa, I just spent 2 years giving you the special sauce. And ultimately I said, I know how to fix that. Let's open up a clinic together, and you'll be able to generate more capital for yourself. And he stayed, and you should know he's with me for 20 years. He's our executive vice president of clinical services at JAG Physical Therapy for the entire company. His name is Michael Evangelist. He's awesome, and we've been together for 20 years. Now, the funny thing is he's my yin to my yang, you know, or the yang to my yin, however they say that. But he's a laid back cat, and I'm a right in front of you, get out and let's go. So we did well together. So it was really, I didn't want to lose Mike. And ultimately, if you look at the first 7 centers, they were all kind of the same reason. We trained someone and I didn't want to lose them.
I love that. That's probably I've asked people similar in your situation with multiple clinics that question, and I've never heard that type of answer before. So that's interesting. I like that. You just,
my wife says I'm really unique.
You're very unique. Well, here's a unique experience, and
I have a great chair.
And you got a great chair. You just mentioned Gene Simmons. On your 50th birthday, you had the opportunity to meet Gene Simmons, and you know I'm old enough to know that part of the audience is going, "Who's that?" I'm like, "Well, look up the band Kiss. Go to Spotify, kids, and just play a couple Kiss songs." Chances are, especially if you've been to professional sports games, you've heard them playing in the background. Yep. Now, Gene's entrepreneurial spirit is been noted, not just his musical, but he really needed to be a marketer. He needed to be able to market and present. I mean, look at, if you just Google Kiss, kids, a little bit different is how they present themselves. How has his approach influenced your business philosophy? I mean, I get some similar vibes in terms of the intensity. Gene Simmons was never one to do anything small or quiet. So what lessons from Gene and Kiss have you also been able to apply to your career?
So that's a great question. And also for the audience that may be a little bit younger than I am and don't know Gene Simmons and Kiss, they may have seen Family Jewels with Gene Simmons. And many people may have seen that on television. And if you watch that and you watch some of the episodes where he's in his office and he's showing you the history of his entrepreneurial sense, and some people get that and some don't. He's talking about businesses, restaurants, albums he's producing, different things he's doing in radio, television, movies, real estate. So if you really have an opportunity and want to learn anything from Gene Simmons, watch a couple of episodes of Family Jewels, but really pay attention to when he's in his office and the shots of his office. And you kind of see this is a man that kind of touches every industry in an entrepreneurial sense. But on my 50th birthday, as a surprise, my team, my family, my brother, my best friend, my brother Mario, my best friend Stu Schwerner, and my cousin Rich and my cousin Andrew put together a weekend, which was originally just to go down to Mardi Gras in New Orleans. And I've never been, here I've been all over with sports, but never went to Mardi Gras. So I'm like, all right, sounds like a hoot. So we go down and we're down there for 2 days. And I'm like, all right, what else we doing? We listened to the music. We had a couple of drinks. Like, this is nice, but it's really crowded. And like, what's next? And then they took me to a fancy restaurant. I'm like, all right, I'm from New York. We've got a lot of nice fancy restaurants. So sure enough, they have this ball every year, and Kiss was playing at the ball. So there's this big parade, and then Kiss goes into the big Coliseum and was the act. And ultimately we get there, and no, it's a ball. We're in tuxedos.
Oh, sure.
So yeah, so we're in. I'll send you a picture if we get a chance. But so we're in full tuxedo, and ultimately we're at the seats. And my buddy goes, "Hey, follow me," and I follow him. And sure enough, they bring me to the belly of the stadium. And what they did was got a one-on-one experience with me and Gene Simmons for an hour underneath the tunnels of the stadium in New Orleans. And he was awesome. First of all, he comes in. I was shocked. He was all dressed up because it was an hour before. So he's all dressed up. He's got his 6-inch heels. And, we did the whole fan thing, took a couple of pictures for 10 minutes. But then literally for 45, 50 minutes, we talked about entrepreneurialism, marketing, branding, understanding your audience, understanding who you want to get to understand what you're doing. How do you replicate that? How do you get your fan base to market for you? So it was awesome, and he kind of shared the whole concept of the makeup and the whole outfit that they wear and the rationale, and I was just so taken back by it that it was great that I went back to my marketing team and said, "We've got to do this, we've got to do this," and they were like, "John, you're not putting makeup on, so get that out of your head." So needless to say, I don't treat patients with makeup, but ultimately, he's just someone that people should take a step back and realize what he's been able to create and build. And it's all based on his drive and his passion and his entrepreneurial spirit.
Yeah, there's been a couple bands out there with my background in radio, and there's only been a few that have been bigger than just creating music. I mean, you can say Kiss created some anthem rock, legendary songs. But Gene Simmons was that, which is what he was very much a yes and yes, he's a musician and he just sort of looked at life, and from the interviews that I've seen him in, he just looked at how could he take that energy, and even if he didn't know about the field or the thing he was going into, he sort of brute forced his way in there. I'll figure it out, but I'm going to bring this energy, which was sort of almost unparalleled if you've ever watched them on stage, of course. I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to change this my way. And some of his things failed, and that's okay because he sort of played the numbers game.
You have to fail to succeed. I don't know how many times I say that in a day. I say it to my children. I say it to my team. You're not going to understand the flavor of success until you've been knocked down and you fail and you get back up.
Yeah.
And listen, I educate all over. I'm going into business schools. I'm going into entrepreneurial programs. I'm going into physical therapy, occupational therapy, athletic training programs. I go into different motivational speaking events. But I tell people all the time, if you've never been knocked down or you've never failed or you've never made a mistake, you're never going to appreciate your success.
Agreed.
So that's very important. And Gene will tell you, they've tried things that just were horrible. We've tried things that just didn't work out, but at least you've tried it.
Yeah. And you walk away smarter. I was reading a great book about the book's called Where Do Good Ideas Come From? And the author essentially said, people are afraid of going back to square one. But the thing that you have to pay attention to is you are now armed with the information with what brought you back, made you go back to square one. So you're not the same person at the same spot, even if you are at square one. So how do you figure it out again? You can take those lessons of failure and put them towards success. Now you can fast track that. You've mentioned the relationship. You talked about your cousin Rich and him being a mentor in your life. And I feel like mentorship is a way of someone maybe pointing out that landmine of failure before you happen to step on it, a good way of looking at that. How did your cousin Rich as a mentor influence your approach to building and scaling your practice? What was his background?
Here's a question for you. Do you want to boost your clinic revenue by $290 per patient per quarter? course you do. That's rhetorical. Physiotech's remote therapeutic monitoring can help you do that, enhance patient outcomes, ease provider workload, and turbocharge your earnings. Kickstart with RTM at physiotech.ca. That's physiotech.ca. And the thing you interact with the most at your clinic, if you're a therapist, like it or not, is your EMR. MW Therapy's all-in-one outpatient PT EMR gives you seamless integration of patient portals, marketing automations, and billing, all at one unbelievable value. Switching over is a breeze too. Kick the tires, take a test drive at mwtherapy.com. And where is your PT career going? It's not rhetorical, it's literal. Embark on extraordinary patient care adventures with Jackson Therapy Partners. Visit them at jacksontherapy.com. This is perfect for physical therapists eager to make their mark, to do what you want to do, where you want to do it. Discover where your career can take you at jacksontherapy.com.
So Rich is a physical therapist. So again, like I told you, I started in clinics at 13. I was at a family party, 16 and a half, 17 years old, applying to colleges. I thought I was going to wrestle in college. I was a wrestler. And Rich was the guy that was always around the kids, the athletes, trying to get us engaged in different activities and trying to bring us out to speak to each other. And one day he had probably 5 of us, including my brother, a couple of cousins, and he turned to me and he goes, "You're going into your senior year. I know you're getting offers to go and wrestle, but what's your plan in life?" And I said, "Well, I'm going to go to college and wrestle." And he goes, and listen, if you know Rich, he's very matter of fact. And he goes, "No, idiot. What do you want to do in life? You're going to college to do something." I said, "Well, because of my dad's business, I've been around physical therapists a lot and I've been in clinics. I'd love to be a physical therapist." And the next thing, I got swatted in the back of the head. And he goes, "Do you have any idea what I do for a living?" And I said, "No." And he goes, "Well, I'm a physical therapist and I have a small private practice. I work for a hospital as well. I do some sports stuff." He goes, "If you really want to be a physical therapist this summer, I'd like you to come and work with me." And he goes, "I'll tell you if you can be a physical therapist or not and if you have what it takes." And ultimately, I went up to his clinic and moved in with his family. And we would start the day at 5:30, where I had to run to stay fit for wrestling. And he would run with me, and then we'd be in the office by 6:45, and we'd see patients from 6:45 until 7 o'clock at night, and then we'd stop for dinner and get home by 9:30. You'd crash at 10 o'clock and start the day all over the next day. And I did that for 10 weeks, and it really taught me how to talk to people, taught me how to motivate people, taught me how to interact with physicians that, think about it, I was a 17-year-old kid. A physician was like a god to me, and I was able to speak to them. And Rich took me to various education programs. I mean, the joke around New York City is Ronnie Barnes from the New York Giants and Russ Warren from the New York Giants and Mike Saunders from the New York Knicks. They knew me when I was 17 years old because I was going to these education sessions with Rich. And ultimately, it sort of gave me a light of direction of sports versus private practice. And I believe, why not do all of it? And I've been able to do it. I've been able to work in pro sports. I'm dual degree, dual licensed. I'm a certified athletic trainer. I've worked as a certified athletic trainer. I'm a licensed physical therapist. I've worked as a licensed physical therapist. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a business owner. I'm an author. I'm a speaker. In my opinion, you only go through one. So why not try everything?
Very Gene Simmons.
Yes.
Very Gene Simmons. Last thing we can do on an episode, John, is called the parting shot. And that's your chance for either a mic drop moment, a soapbox statement. What would you want to leave with the audience? Is there something that you'd want to make sure they don't forget?
The best thing I could possibly tell your audience is never take no for an answer. If you want it, go get it. And if you get knocked down, get back up and you'll enjoy that taste of success. It's so important. Follow your path and follow your dreams.
Love it.
You only go through once. So do what you got to do.
Well played. John, appreciate, I was going to say bring in your insight, but I feel like your energy comes into the room before your insight does. It's pretty big. I like that. thanks for doing what you do and being a good example. The one thing I would want to, that I'm holding on to, is you don't have 155 clinics. You've got 155 individual community clinics. I think that's a good way to look at it.
And I'm so proud of what our team has been able to achieve.
Appreciate it. All right.